Okay, everybody, welcome to another conversation. Today I'm with Charles. And Charles, well, I met Charles first of all in Barcelona. And ever since then, like we've just been communicating, I guess. Charles, how are you doing?
I'm good, bro. How are you?
I'm good, good. Uh,
Yeah.
this conversation is going to be interesting because you have a very interesting like profile and interest.
Yeah. Well, I hope to be able to discover even more in this conversation.
All right. The first
Yeah.
thing I'm going to ask, Charles, is basically your own, what's your own background story in the sense of like growing up, like where you're from. First of all, I want you to like state where you're from, and then like growing up in the place where you're from.
Yeah. Um. Well, I grew up. I've grown up in Kenya most of my life.
Hmm.
Um.
Where in Kenya?
In the suburbs, a
Okay.
town called Kitengela.
Okay.
So and I'm actually still here. I've seen the entire town rise from ashes. I remember back in the day, it was basically in the middle of nowhere to what it is right now. Um, my background in upbringing is a bit it's a bit so my parents were of the age where they moved out of the countryside and they were sort of establishing themselves in the city or work life mostly in the city. So yeah, that's how I ended up growing mostly in the suburbs.
What did your parents do?
So my dad is in well, he's retired now, but he was in environmental conservation,
Okay.
and my mom is a high school teacher. She teaches geography and
Wait, your
humanities.
dad was into environmental conservation
Yeah.
and your mom teaches geography. You're like a product of what? Sustainability?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's more or less the backstory. So I've grown up. I'd said we say we are okay. The funny thing we say now, my generation, because we're this place where we sort of understand our mother tongue, but don't speak it that well. So we
Okay.
just say we are Kenyans.
What was wait,
Yeah,
sorry. So I want to ask this question. Obviously I don't know because I'm Nigerian, but I want to ask like so in Kenya, for example, what is the
yeah.
divisions? I mean, I know because like we studied in school like the Mau Mau and like the Mau Mau conflict, right? But like what
Yeah.
are like the ethnic divisions in Kenya itself?
So they're like 47 main tribes. Or the
Okay, what are the
47
main
tribes.
ones?
I'm not the best in this demographic of ours, but I'd say the biggest, I think, Kikuyu, Kalenjin, Luo, Kamba. Yeah, and then the rest just fall in. Oh, then there's Luya, and then
Okay.
the rest just fall in the, the Rendile at the north. You have the Giriama, the coast. Um, the Masai. The Masai is actually big. That's mostly to the
Uh
south.
yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever met
Yeah.
Masais?
Sorry.
Have you ever met Masais?
Yeah, we live with them. Actually, Kitengela is more or less. It was more or less a Maasai settlement.
Ah, okay,
Nairobi,
okay.
even to begin with, Nairobi is actually a Maasai word.
Oh,
It
really?
means cool waters. Yeah.
So okay, obviously everybody like me knows them from like, like very tall, jumping when they're dancing. That's what we know about the Maasai. It's like red clothes, Is that
Yeah,
really what they are like, or is there something else that I don't know is interesting? Are they
more or
all
less.
tall?
um, Actually, the majority of them tend to be tall.
Mm,
Yeah, to be honest, they're the stereotype of they're our cultural landmark, I'd say. I
mm,
think as far as Kenya goes, they're the community that's preserved mostly because they have their traditional regalia, the shawl, the lesso,
mm-hmm.
and the beads, and the and the dance also, the jumping.
Yeah.
Hey, you should actually hear the hum they make when they do that. It's yeah,
Oh, they
it's
hum when they are jumping.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a rhythm behind it, and it's quite um, yeah. You can just look it up online. Like, we have the advantage of having sounds refined these days. But yeah, it's interesting how they do it.
So,
Yeah,
so essentially, like them jumping is literally following a rhythm. Like they are
yeah,
jumping to a rhythm.
yeah, and yeah,
Oh, okay. I never knew that.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay, okay. But back to yeah, you're explaining your parents, you being a baby of sustainability.
Yeah. I guess that um, I guess that has had a sort of influence in my trajectory career wise, not career wise, but identity wise.
Okay.
um, yeah. So, well, the fact that my mom teaches geography. When I was in high school, actually, I dropped geography because I didn't want to be. Yeah, I don't want to be in this scenario where I'm on holiday, and I remember my elder sister. Um, we used to, when you're on holiday and you're going for a trip somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
and my mom will occasionally point out, landmark features, hills, and then the whole
Yeah.
conversation will be about formation processes. I remember, yeah, I remember thinking, yeah, I don't want my holidays to be like this.
Wait, but did you go to your mom's school, like where she taught?
No, no. So she taught in an all girls school.
Oh, okay. Oh, you didn't know.
Um, yeah. No, but my brother my twin actually did continue geography, and
You're a twin.
uh, yeah.
You're a twin.
Uh, yeah, I'm sure I've mentioned this before.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
That's
hey,
crazy. I can't
yeah,
remember you telling me this.
yeah,
Okay, interesting.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, he eventually went on with geography, and during the holidays, and sometimes he used to go to her school just for the common sessions.
Mm,
Um, yeah, where they're trying to tutor the form fours. Well, that's the highest high school level in Kenya.
okay.
That's still that's since transitioning. Yeah, there's a new education system, but
Mm-hmm.
um, it's still to make its mark to high school or to the highest level of high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. Okay. All right. So I want to understand, for example, like when you guys were growing up in Kenya, how it was like for choosing what you want to focus on. So in Nigeria, I'll give
Mm-hmm.
an example. In Nigeria, like you have primary school 6 years, then you have three years of junior secondary school. It's all called junior secondary and senior secondary are called secondary school. But we have 3 years of junior secondary school whereby like everybody does the same thing. Primary school is the same. Everybody does the same thing. Then the last 3 years of senior secondary school, like we are broken into different sections based on your own interest. So there's like science class. There is technical class. There are the art class, and then there's commercial class. So divided into four, more or less. So what is it like? The educational divisions and scenario in Kenya.
So in Kenya, I kind of feel like education in Kenya now is more or less each political regime, like each sitting president wants to leave their own landmark in terms of what system they introduce. So, for example, when my parents were growing up, it was 7 primary, 4 high school, 2 senior high, and 3 college. And then the system we went through is the 844 system, which is 8 years in primary, 4 years in high school, and 4 years in college. And then the current system, the new system that's there, it's called. Now I think it's more or less similar to what you're describing, which is 2 years junior. It's actually PPE. So that's a junior level completely, and then 6 years primary, and then I think 3 years junior, 2 years senior high school, and 3 years in college. Yeah.
Why is it so political? I don't understand. Why so many changes?
To be honest, I feel like the first one, the 7-4, that one was necessitated mostly because we were transitioning out of sort of colonial period. So 7-4, that sounds like a common system worldwide. The junior high, I guess.
Yeah.
Junior high and senior high. Because in senior high now they used to specialize. And okay, the 844 one especially, that one was a bit political because so that was during Moi's era, the longest serving president. So I feel like he felt like he needed to leave a landmark, especially in education. So, for example, for the 8 years in primary, you're doing the same thing. 4 years in high school. You have the option of specializing, but that's after, say, after the first 2 years of high school. And the subjects you specialize in are more or less determined by your school. So whether or not your school offers certain subjects, or whether or not your school so for example, I'll give an example of the high school I went to. I went to a school in Nakuru called Kabarak. So typically we used to do all sciences as compulsory and all languages. Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're in high school, like you still do sciences.
Yeah. Yeah, actually. So that varies. You'd find most people like you do just one science.
Okay.
And then we had the humanities, which is now the geography, history, Christian religious education. And that one was called applied. So that one was mostly like your computer, French, music. No, those fell under that bracket. So I remember for my high school, because it was perceived that I don't know where actually that policy came from, because technically it's this is according to me. I found that
according to Charles, guys.
But the sciences are quite easy to pass in, especially considering you're doing practical. Like you have 3 papers. One of them is practical, and the other one is more. It's more methodology based, where you're stating, you're defining where the question you're answering is in its context based, and it's meaty basically. So I felt like with those 2 papers, it was quite easy for you to do well. So I think that's why they went with it.
I think you just exposed your intellectual capacity by yourself, saying science is easy. But okay.
Yeah, I don't know. People are gifted differently, I guess, but maybe that's why they went with it that way. And then also, if you find that when the national exam is being tallied, they have the option of, they look at the 8 subjects you're doing, which ones did you perform better at. So, for example, if you're doing 3 sciences, they'll take off 1, give you 2, and then for the applied and the humanity, they give you those, depending on which one you did well in.
Okay.
So, for example, if you're doing all the 3 sciences, it's quite hard for you to go wrong in all, or at least in 2. And then now you get your humanities and your applied sciences. I think that's how. I think that was the best niche of our school. But I know of friends who like did art and building construction. So I find those are quite. I feel like those are, you can be passionate about them and apply yourself in them, as opposed to, yeah, as opposed to looking for the grades in this other, in this other regime of ours.
Yeah. Okay, I see. Then like you now decided to do architecture. Like, why did you decide to study architecture? Like your dad was into. I mean, so it's interesting now when I think about it. Like where did those interests come out from? Like structures and designs, etc.
Well, to be honest, I never saw myself doing architecture. Yeah, I did. So in high school, I was doing all sciences and history and computer studies. I did history 1 because I didn't want to do geography. And okay, we had a really cool teacher. Like, I remember our sessions were mostly just debates, to be honest. And up until that moment, I wanted to do law.
Oh wow.
Yeah. But aside from that, it was mostly the clubs I participated in was photography and art. So when I did finish high school and ended up doing well, I realized I had a wider variety to choose from, and not just the law that I thought I wanted to do.
Okay.
Also, lawyers tend to be a bit in your face, and after some introspection, I realized that's not me. Yeah, I'm a bit more reserved than that. So. Yeah. Well, architecture in practice now is a bit. I'm coming to find that the law part is actually required. So yeah, it's a wholesome trajectory, but yeah. So so the subjects I ended up, or the courses I ended up choosing, because I was good, sort of good in art. So let me fill in architecture first. Let me give a run for, I think I had dentistry there. And then law came in last, or the third one. And then computer science also came in somewhere there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the fact that like in Kenya, at least they like you have the possibility to study such that you have such options, you know. Like in
Yeah.
Nigeria, like somebody planning to do law can never think about like you just do not have the subjects to be able
Yeah.
to go and do law in university. Like or like somebody that like I don't know is in the sciences does not have the subjects to go and do law. Like you can't, you know, it's kind of more rigid and fixed,
Yeah.
like your trajectories and your options.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's the pros and cons to that. No, I mean like in the sense that yes, this is the advantage of it. But then I think now in the systems that they've been revising, the one before and the one now,
Okay.
they're sort of the opinion that it's better for you to know what you want to be doing from a young age. You know, like you. So say from 2-6 junior high, now you're fixed in the trajectory you want to go in. I have a friend now who's more in the millennial age, but then he says someone who went through the 844 system is you can survive in the world. Basically, that's how he says.
Mm,
Because you're geared with the skills to handle pretty much anywhere you'd find yourself.
okay.
Um, yeah, but at the same time, be decent enough to know what you want to do early on.
Yeah.
So,
it will help
yeah.
in being able to pay the bills faster.
Yeah,
Perhaps.
there's that. Yeah.
Okay. So of course, like Charles, we meet in Barcelona, and you know, like it was so. You know, every time I hear people like, "Oh, 3D printing," and like, "Oh my God," you know, like I always think that yeah, there are these people that there's somewhere in the world, you know, like people that do 3D printing. I mean, yeah, they're out there. But like when you
Yeah.
say, "Oh no, I'm actually doing 3D printing," I'm like, "Wait, you guys are this close? Like, you know, you're around the corner." So
Yeah.
tell me a bit more about that, like just your time in Barcelona, like 3D printing, what 3D printing is, what it tries to achieve, in terms of Aki, like where does it fit in, and basically like what's the plan, like for people that are driving 3D printing today, like what exactly is their own vision for the world?
Um, okay. Yeah, I'll try and break that down into how I ended up looking into 3D printing
Okay.
and what I discovered in the course of that and afterwards. Because afterwards, I also had the chance of uh, working in practice in an
Okay.
organization locally that does 3D printing.
Okay.
Um, so how I ended up looking into 3D printing. Um, okay, I'll do a bit of a. I'll circle back even a bit earlier because architecture for me, because I didn't know exactly I wanted to do it. The first few years were a bit turbulent. I did grasp the concepts a bit, but it's quite a intangible thing to teach.
What do you mean by that?
Uh, Design. It's you know how to conjure up a concept in your mind, how to execute it,
Mm.
how to articulate it, how to
Mm-hmm.
how to engage people into it. It's very subjective. It's very abstract,
Mm-hmm. So are you
and
saying that it's more interior design than architecture and building?
not interior design per se. I'm just saying architecture itself, on the design
Okay,
front,
okay, okay.
actually.
Okay.
Design in general, I think, even product design and stuff, because it's a bit abstract, you know. If I think yeah, there's a you know there's a lot that goes into setting up how architects are able to, you know, conjure up how they're able to conjure up basically the designs they do, the executions of the plans and everything. But there's a lot of background to it, especially in the first few years. We were like in first year we were drawing lines and you know, in studio you just sit there drawing straight lines and drawing human figures, and now you have to understand what does this all mean, you know, in this, because you're like, you know, you're thinking, you know, you just need to be designing buildings, you know.
Yeah.
And that's the end of it. So you know, like, so for the example, the line exercise is just to understand composition. The human figure exercise, that was more or less to understand the extent of the human being, you know, the person you're designing for.
Wait,
how
when you say
that
designing human figures, like, is it like, is it Michelangelo? Who's the guy that like drew the man, like the human being?
yeah
Michelangelo, no?
yeah
So is that what you guys were doing literally?
that was actually that's the foundation for it, but
Okay.
the exercises we were doing are a bit more fun. Like, you know, a classmate is told to sit somewhere,
You've concluded that
strike
that
a
was
pose.
boring.
No, Michelangelo was not boring, philosophical, you know, like yeah, that's actually quite interesting. There's a when we're doing the research for the 3D printing course, there's a group that was doing that was working on the subject of ergonomics. So ergonomics is how the human form relates with the objects around us.
Okay.
And I remember what they used for their data collection. They just did a point cloud of someone, say, washing a hand basin, and this was informed by, I think there's an artist, a sculptor who does it, where he does still images of people, and that's what he informs his artwork. Okay. So, for example, for the ladies, what they were doing is, or that group, what they were doing is, you know, they're doing still shots of people washing their hands or people going to sit down. And because you're 3D printing it, now you have the freedom of working with the constraints of what you're able to, you know, the real life data you're able to capture. So yeah, that was quite mind blowing. But you see, now this is an advanced application that was also informed by the first year secondary exercises. But yeah, being a young adult, yeah, you struggle to see it. Yeah. So it sort of registered a bit later. I think third year is a transformational year, or second year, third year, because now you start bringing in the elements together. So third year for me, we did a trip to a place called Voi in Kenya, which is more like countryside.
Okay.
But the whole the courses we were doing in that semester, it was mostly like an approach to materials.
Okay.
And I remember that resonated a bit with me. Because that's when I think my dad's work had a huge influence on me. So he was working with a conservation group called WWF.
Okay.
So like you tag along for a lot of the events. There's a time they're doing an ivory burn. You stick around his office a bit and all that. So now the conservation side of what conservation actually is about start creeping into the architecture side because of the exercises you're doing in that year. And I think that's what stuck with me from those formative years in college. So yeah, so this whole subject of materiality and so by materiality it's mostly the vernacular, how the native ways we build things in the past.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like mud houses and like
Yeah.
bamboo houses, those kind of things.
Yeah, thatch, stuff like
yeah.
that.
Okay, yeah. So you guys refer to that as materiality.
Yeah, it's a connectedness to to the elements. Yeah.
And when you say elements, what do you mean per se?
Elements up.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's materials that are most. It's not process. It's not concrete.
Okay.
I
mean, they exist by themselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're like natural. You just like plug them and then you use them to construct things.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I understand.
Yeah. So the idea stuck in my head, and then when I was doing my so architecture school is 6 years. That's too long for anyone.
Okay. Why is it 6 years?
In Kenya, actually, you have the option of doing it for 4 years, and then you get your architectural studies. It's still undergrad for some reason. I mean, the 6 years is still undergrad. The other 2 years is still undergrad. But so 4 years, you have the option of going out, and then the other 2 years are more like research years. So for my 6th year, the research topic I was looking into, yeah, I guess it just came intuitively because of the interest in that topic. So the research topic I was looking into was in the use potential of the traditional construction materials with so the use potential of traditional vernacular technology or vernacular construction technology or techniques.
Okay.
So by looking at technology as a wider term, you have materials and you have technique, which is the assembly. But then, so the framework, the theoretical framework was that if you improve on the techniques and then the materials, this way of building we used to have long ago, it's still relevant in this day and age.
Okay.
So
it's irrelevant because
it's still relevant.
Oh, it's still relevant. Okay.
Yeah, like basically we should go back to how we used to do things.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the hypothesis for this? Like, what is the problem that you figured out that you're like, well, to fix these problems, we might consider going back to the past?
Okay. There's a problem I'd state on paper as a researcher, but as a human being, me myself, one, I was bored with how we do things.
Okay.
It's always, especially Europe definitely is different. Like people are a bit innovative with how they combine, but here it's masonry block and everyone does the same thing. Yeah. So yeah, there was that one, and then two. I think the influence of how I grew up, and if you're looking at it, basically, this is someone who's never grown up in a madhouse, but if you're faced with the conflict of does it actually, why did we get out of that, and should we have gotten out of it? Because there's always this gimmicks of how far we've progressed, like in this day and age. Like we sort of abandoned who we were.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I
the
have a
way,
question for that. Like, so from a materiality point of view, right? I mean, so
yeah,
if I think about thatch houses, if I think about like mud houses, in my head bungalows, like bungalows straight up, like singular houses, etc.
yeah,
And like like it's mostly community based setting in the sense of, oh, you have your mud house here, right? Then a little compound, then the next house, then the same structures. But of course, when
yeah,
we're talking about, and mostly the setting, at least, in my own head, are rural settings. Um,
yeah,
like so, when we now talk about like urban areas whereby you have to be smart about space, how you construct on land, and of
yeah,
course, like building taller buildings that can house more people was a kind of a solution for urbanization. How would you integrate this, like how we know how to build mud and thatch houses into urban spaces whereby human beings, are rapidly increasing, and like the conditions are different. So like how will you put air conditioning, for example, in a thatch house? How will you put heating, like how you put gas, how you put like the electricity and the wiring, etc.
um, that's an interesting trajectory to this conversation. So, um, I mean, the hypothesis. I think I'll just mention it later. But the context of my research um, was actually in Nairobi.
Okay.
Uh, all the case studies I used for my research were based in Nairobi, and
Okay.
it's because you have this scenario where the thatch houses end up being low income houses, the slums.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but in the midst of, so when you think of slums, actually, you do think of dilapidated housing. But in the midst of all that chaos, I found two case studies that were actually well done. Um, so that so both of them are schools, so more or less community centers, and but there's all this. Yeah, even in you asking that question. Okay, you've also mentioned the addition of, say, heating elements and cooling elements. So even one thing with natural materials is the way you execute with them. Chances are you actually don't even, okay, depending on the climate you're in, but even in the climate, for example, in the Mediterranean, the traditional way of doing it, if it's traditional construction, you actually didn't need to integrate those items, you know.
Why? Like the house
But
self-regulates, or what's the?
yeah, yeah, and that's the nature of the material.
But
But
I mean, there's a limit to this, no? In the sense of like,
yeah,
if the environment is like
the
one
comfort,
degree.
yeah,
No, but like if it's 1 degree, like I need a certain, like it can self-regulate, but I might need to feel 20 degrees when
yeah.
outside is like 1 degrees.
Yeah, there's that. Okay, actually, so for example, if you're looking at the wall section for such a climate, you'd find it's typically very thick, very dense,
Yeah.
minimal openings. You would have some heated elements,
Okay.
but then the the building is designed in such a way that the heating element sort
What
of
is the
distributes
skin?
let's say the wall, the enclosure, because the building is basically the enclosure. It's like how you put on clothes, the jacket and all that.
Okay. Oh, so you guys
But
refer to it as skin.
yeah, hypothetically now.
Okay. 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 Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
but you'd find that it's been designed in such a way that even the small heating element you put in the house distributes the heat. Um, But that's also for one climate. There's a lot of correlation between culture, like culture, technology, economy, what you're describing in city
Mm-hmm.
dwelling, and how far it's actually arguable whether or not city life is fulfilling, because
Okay.
it's, and that's the conversation of how where we moved from, and should we actually have gone too fast into moving out of the countryside, because the countryside is quite it's quite regenerative being there.
Mm.
um, yeah, so there are all these dynamics, and I think even when we're doing so I think I've answered your question in the sense that okay, it depends with the context. In Europe, definitely, I don't
Mm-hmm.
think you're likely to see this.
Mm-hmm.
But then in Africa, the mud houses end up being low income housing in
Mm-hmm.
the city. But how
Mm-hmm.
can you dignify that?
Yeah.
And then you have, I mean, like even if, okay, but this is on a purely theoretical approach. For the research we were doing, we were looking at how you could be able to do 3D printed construction within the city, and because with 3D printing, you have the control of the narrative in the you have the technology going for you. You
Mm-hmm.
have the aesthetic, like you can be able to achieve that.
Mm-hmm.
So does it offer you the the mileage to actually do it in high-rise construction, to do it in the
Mm-hmm.
city, to do it on that grander scale? So
Mm.
those are hypotheses, more hypotheses that we used in the advanced research. But okay,
Mm-hmm.
when my hypothesis as a researcher were the awareness of climate change that we have right now,
Okay.
and this was during COVID. So you are stuck in a situation in Kenya where we import mostly, say, hourglass and stuff.
Yeah.
So you end up you're relying on materials that are not native to you. Like even concrete, there's some admixtures that we keep on importing,
Mm-hmm.
and I think COVID was basically a reality check to all of us. So
Mm.
with these scenarios, like you're aware of the climate, you're aware of the technologies that are around you and the resources you have.
Mm-hmm.
So should we be thinking of going back to how we used to do things, and with the technologies that are available? Because even the schools that I was researching as case studies, they weren't, they wasn't 3D printed or anything, but it was just based on the fundamentals that, I mean, it was based on the awareness that as a designer, or when I'm building with this material that's very likely to fail, I just need to keep away the water, which is in the roof. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, do a larger overhang. And then also in the foundation. So figure out a way of keeping the groundwater away.
Mm.
And yeah, if you're more aware of that, now you can, just that simple approach. You've begun addressing the material through the technique, and you've addressed the technique and the material. That's the technology of the building.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was the hypothesis and the framework.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
so
this is
even
the hypothesis that you carried to Barcelona then.
yeah, so
Okay.
as I was doing that research part, I just applied the framework to, because I came across the opportunity and do. So I was saying, yeah, more or less, I don't know, it's been a journey of grace. Yeah, because I came across the opportunity the same time I was doing the research. Then I just applied that, and then and ended up getting the opportunity to travel out to Barcelona and to look into 3D printing construction.
Okay.
Yeah. So
yeah.
no, you.
No, go ahead.
So I guess we've addressed the initial questions you had asked was I think now the part that are coming to answer is 3D printing and what the people who envisioned it for us, or for what their vision is for the world.
Why? First of all, I think the most important question is like, why do we need 3D printing? Is it necessary?
That's not necessary.
No.
Nah.
Okay, so why are people still like trying to develop it? Like, what are they seeing, or what's in their own heads, technically?
So it offers you a lot of freedom in design.
Okay.
So basically, you can imagine, say something in your car is broken.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying just in architectural standards, but when you think of 3D printing, it can apply to anything.
Okay.
It's there in dentistry, in medicine, in manufacturing. So it's only fit that it evolves into an industry like architecture. And I think that's what the relevance in the architectural field is about. Because you can imagine, like, in a scenario where something in your car is broken, and you need that specific element.
Yeah.
It's easy just to come up with the design, or if you have the model of it somewhere.
Okay.
So basically just produce it for yourself, depending on the material, and then you have the flexibility of which material it is. So that's why it's quite a craze, because it offers a wide range of application and a wide range of freedom.
Okay.
Well, now, so going back to your question, is it necessary? I guess it's necessary.
Okay.
Because I guess it is necessary, because I think it offers people a skill, and it's readily available. So it offers people that freedom. Yes. I guess the no I was saying to it's not necessary is no in architecture. Or in construction. I think it's just a tool at the end of the day.
Okay.
Because the thing with construction, like, especially on that scale, like, there's so many variables to how something should come out, and you don't want to limit it to 3D printing.
Okay.
Because I mean, this is textbook. Like, if you look up the benefits of 3D printing, it's always you save on time, you save on cost. There's no formwork and stuff, so it's textbook. But then the moment you start thinking of it, like, what actually goes into it, or what is involved in a project, especially in my context. In Europe, this was definitely fun to work with. And then, because you're past the point where I'd say this is what I'd argue. You past the point where you're providing a need.
Okay.
And that's why it's fun to work with, like, on a research level, because you can explore the geometry, you can explore the form, you can explore the material.
Yeah.
But the moment you bring it here, so many variables to it. Yeah.
I see.
So yeah. So I was working with an organization in Kenya. Yeah, that does 3D printing. Okay, but then you can imagine in Africa for that to exist, it's obviously a foreign entity that's bringing it in.
Yeah.
And I think the experience I had of it in my own context is that yeah, it's foreign, especially with them. Yeah, because one, we were doing it in concrete. So, and then the thing with concrete is, so it is, if we're doing it in concrete, then obviously the manufacturer or the guys implementing it have to be, top dogs in the, in the concrete industry. So for a technology that's supposed to be quite open source, you have a lot of IP issues in the material, in the machine. Whereas when you're doing it in Barcelona, so actually when I joined them, the whole idea was that I helped them develop this art mix with what we have readily available here. But the thing is, our their idea of it is like they monetize it in the sense that whenever a client comes up and wants to do a structure in Earth, you monetize it in the sense that we have the IP for how to do 3D printed Earth construction, and this is the IP we hold, and we can be able to do this for you. I don't know. It's a bit conflicting because for me the idea was like it's there, you should be able just to do it. And the technology part should be like in the sense that you want to grow the skill level of your context. And it's not like a top down thing. Maybe it's wishful thinking, I don't know. But
interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm just thinking because my sister just called me, and like I have to go and support her in something. So I guess I'll just ask you like a final question. Especially as regards like I'll just stop. I will like conclude the question. The final question I'm asking will still be around like architecture because like 3D printing. So of course, like a lot of people, when they they don't really think about where they live. Like, nobody, like, obviously, like, people just want to, like, I don't know, buy a house or, like, like, live in where they're living. They don't want to, like, think about, like, the structures or the formation, like, what is it? But I want to ask because, so, places like Japan, for example, are able to build resistant materials. I want to ask, like, when it comes to archi design, right? What makes the architect, and what I mean by this is that, like, when they are teaching you guys like architecture in school, for example, like what do you guys look out for in your like before you do your designs? What do you guys look out for, before like you implement? And like what's the will I say the process like from I'm the architect to the idea to I don't know the construction guy that actually constructs your idea. What is that chain?
The user, the person, the people.
Okay.
I think that should fundamentally drive all the decisions you make on a design.
Okay.
So when you talk about the user now, you go down to where the user is, what's the context, what's the climate. You mentioned Japan, so the resilient structures is because they're a bit prone to some natural disasters and stuff. So they have come up with solutions for that in their own right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's this interesting book. It's called Architecture Without Architects.
Okay.
But it basically describes how civilizations in the past have been doing their own thing without even the intervention of this title of architect, because um, the whole concept is quite larger. It's
Mm-hmm.
there's culture, there's technology and all that.
Mm.
So I think past the user, the context, and the context, I mean, you even have the technology that's available to you. And then I think now crossing into modern day, definitely it's the client. And this refined industry of ours now,
Mm-hmm.
it's where the money is coming from. So,
Okay.
um, so I guess you kind of define the same hierarchy, because it's what the client wants,
Mm.
the resources the client has. I think to the extent where you actually um, the traditional way sounds a bit more novel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but yeah, because with our specialization in this day and age, it's mostly what the client wants, the resources he has. So it's more or less project management, understanding the team you're working with. You have the specializations of a mechanical engineer, these infrastructures you're fitting into the design you've come up with. And you have all the specializations around the structural engineer.
Okay.
So now you're looking at the user, or the user and the vision he has for what he wants to develop. And then in the process of working on that, you have the people, the team you're working with. That's the construction team, the specializations, and what they offer to the project. And then you have the coordination of all of that. Yeah, and ultimately you're working to deliver on something that the user and the client would be happy with. So I think that's what
Mm.
the industry now is.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any final words you have for, I don't know, the person listening to this that like wants to do architecture perhaps, or is interested in architecture? So for the two people, so for the person that wants to become an architect, and then for the people that are interested in like maybe like for the people that are interested in architecture, like I don't know, like recommendations, or like just the path they should take in terms of their interest. And then for the first person, of course, like whether it's worth it or they're wasting their time.
uh, well, for the first person, I don't know. I've heard it from a number of people. It's just really wasting your time,
Mm-hmm.
or from a number of peers. But for me, to be honest, it's just been a journey of discovery. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it comes down to just it's cliche to say, but um, trusting the process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Because even for me, like with all the experiences I've had, it's still very much a journey of discovery.
Okay.
Just the other day, I was looking into bamboo construction
Mm-hmm.
in Bali. That to me is a bit closer home, because actually the way they were doing it is you have they've gone to the extent of implementing the technologies, like in the form of the softwares we use.
Mm-hmm.
Like they even had like um, um, AR glasses just to visualize the entire structure, and then when you're assembling based on something that's been designed even beforehand. So I mean that was a new discovery for me. So and it's also based on that founding principle. Also, I'd like to tell them that architecture is so beautiful. Like the moment it clicks, because like for me, it's your interests become you're not they're just flowing out of you because it's out of identity because you're trying to relate to all these curiosities you have. Um, and I think that architecture is more like art, where it affords you that, and okay, by the nature of it, that it's long hours and everything, you leave that. So that's the beauty of it. And you discover a lot. You discover yourself a lot when you go through the formation processes in architecture. It's a labor of love.
And then for the second person, just people curious in Aki. What book would you recommend? What's like your best, let's say, architecture or design book? And like, who's your best or favorite architect?
My best book is the one I just mentioned, Architecture Without Architects, because it gives it humbles you a lot in the sense that you there's actually a quote in the book. It's called the Mason versus the Architect. And there's this image of this dome structure. I think it's in a ancient civilization somewhere. And if you look at the intricacy of how they've done it, and then so the writer goes on to quote like, give a mason brick and mortar and watch him craft light into a space. But then give an architect with all the technologies available to him, and he'll give you a box basically, something like that. Yeah, but it's it made me sort of, it brings you to the awareness of you need to understand what you have around you. Yeah, and also the humility that you don't know everything. Yeah. So yeah.
Favorite architects?
Okay. I wouldn't give like a star architect, but there are a couple of guys who are coming up who have, the guys I'm about to say they have quite some interesting theories or applications. There's a guy called Mamu Mani.
Kenyan?
No. He's Spanish. He's working in the UK right now.
Oh, okay. Manu Mani.
Mamu Mani.
Okay.
There's a guy almost the same age as me. He's called, or even younger. He's called Sol Kim.
Okay.
Yeah, but especially for him now, even like the way he interrogates buildings and stuff. And then you have your veterans who are, say, Jeffrey Bauer. I think Jeffrey Bauer was quite, his work is quite intriguing. You have big architects. They're also interesting. Yeah, big. I think big is quite. Yeah. So that's Biak Ingel's group. Yeah. Yeah, I'd say those are a couple of guys I look up to, and yeah, the background for each of them is a bit different. For just one size fits all. They all have something unique they're working on.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, anyways, Charles, thank you so much, first of all, for your time, for your knowledge as regards, now I know materiality. I'm going to go with that. And also like just for the insights as regards, well, I say like what 3D printing is actually useful for in the grand scheme of things, right? For everybody that's listening to this, I hope you enjoyed it. So if you want to reach out to you, what should I put, like your LinkedIn or what? I can't
Yeah.
put your number, anything but your number. Yeah.
Wait, what's wrong with my number?
No, because it's like public. I don't know like who's going to send you a message, So better to,
Whatever it is,
yeah.
just filling a link. LinkedIn and Instagram, I guess, is my
All right.
most active. I'm not that active, but my most active. my
All
most
right.
active. Yeah. So
No problem.
Instagram is just search Charles Musyoki. No, that's LinkedIn. Instagram, it's Musyoki or Charles Mother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Musyoki or
Charles Mother.
Charles Mother. Okay. Like it's together. Musyoki or Charles Mother. Oh, you are not sure. I'll just put
Yeah,
your I'll
I
just
see
put your
that.
LinkedIn then. I'll just put your LinkedIn. I have your LinkedIn, so I'll just put your LinkedIn on the link in the description so people can like check you out.
Maybe I can share the Instagram handle.
Oh no,
Link,
that's
link.
fine. You can send it to my WhatsApp and then I'll also like put in the link in the description.
Yeah, thank you for your time, Over.
No problem,
I
man.
think
No
I'll
problem.
I'll reach out to you on a separate note just to get your ideas on business, because
No wala. No problem. All right.
yeah.
All right, Charles. Have a good evening.
Okay, you too. Thanks. Cheers.